In this clip, we'll explore how Maya can be used to build models. So the first thing that we want to do is set up our interface to be more conducive to the modeling that we're going to be doing. It's very easy to do with our workspaces. If we go up to the upper right, you can see right now our workspace is set to Maya Classic. Let's go ahead and click on the drop-down, and let's choose a modeling-specific workspace. In this case, we'll choose Modeling Standard. Now with the Modeling Standard workspace, you can see the Modeling Toolkit has been brought up over here on the right-hand side. This is going to allow us to do a lot of the things that we need to do very, very quickly. The first thing I want to talk about are primitives. Primitives are objects that Maya provides as sort of starting points. They're basic shapes that you can use to create your models. You can create primitives in a number of different ways. We can come up to our poly modeling shelf, and we can see some of those primitives here. We can also go to Create under Objects, and we have different kinds of primitives. We're going to be concentrating on polygon primitives in this clip. From here, you can see you can create a sphere, a cube, a cylinder, very basic shapes. Let's start with just a cube. As we click on our cube, you can see it appears here in the 3D view, and it appears at the origin. If we want to focus in on that, we can go ahead and frame it with the F key. Now, we might not want this cube to be exactly this size or shape, or maybe we want it to have a little bit more resolution. Well, this is a primitive, so that means we have certain parameters that we can change for this cube. If we go into our attribute editor, which is right next to our modeling toolkit, and we go to the Polycube tab, you can see that there are some sliders here for width, which we can change here, height, and depth. So we can change those 3 dimensions of our cube interactively. We can also come in and change the subdivisions. So we can add subdivisions along the width, the height, and depth. Now subdivisions are important because you can only change the shape of an object where there is a point. And so if you have a cube that doesn't have any subdivisions, there's really no options for changing the shape of this and creating a more complex model. So subdivisions are going to be very important. Now this is a primitive, meaning that it has these parameters that we can change. Once we start getting into actually building models, we want to sort of disregard the primitive state of this and start working with this as a straight polygon model. Before we do that, I want to talk about some of the different components that make up a polygon model. Let's jump back to our modeling toolkit. Right now we're in object mode, as you can see by the green outline and the fact that we're only able to select this object as a whole. Here at the top of the modeling toolkit, you'll see there are different selections that we can make. So right now we're in object mode. You can also see up here on the upper left, we're in object mode. But we can also change to select different kinds of components, and we can do this in a number of ways. We can come over here and you can see there's a vertex selection. So we'll use this to talk about the first type of component, the vertex. So you can see the hotkey for that is F9. I can click on that, and now these lines turn blue and the points turn purple. And these points are the vertices. Okay, that's going to be the plural of vertex. If I select this, you can see I can hit the W key and I can actually manipulate and move it around. But a vertex is really just a point in 3D space. It's basically 3 numbers, an X value, a Y value, and a Z value. Now, these points in 3D space are connected by straight lines called edges. We can select our edges here in our modeling toolkit. We can select them in the view, and we can manipulate those as well. And again, those are just straight lines connecting 2 points in space. A vertex and an edge don't really have any sort of volume or mass. They wouldn't show up by themselves. We're able to see them here just because we get a little indicator. But the real part of the object that we can see is the polygon or the face, and that's our next component. If we come in here and select our face, you can see that's the actual visible part of the object. This is formed by multiple edges, at least 3 edges. A triangle is the smallest polygon face that you can have. The most common type of face is going to be 4-sided, or what's called a quad, and then anything over 4 sides is going to be referred to as an n-gon. We can also select all of these components by right-clicking on our object, and in the marking menu, selecting the particular one that we want to pick. Now, inside of the modeling toolkit, we also have this multi-component button. This is really cool because you can go in and you can actually, without switching components, you can select any of the 3 components. So we can select points or vertices, we can select faces, we can select edges without having to switch back and forth. And you can see that encompasses all 3 of those different components. You can turn that off here. You also have different selection types. So you can see here I can just quickly select and drag those around. using this tweak marquee, or we can drag across to select those. So now that we've taken a look at the basics of polygon geometry with the components, let's take a look at some basic modeling functionality. I'm going to jump back to our classic layout and turn on this ship layer. Now the ship is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to pull out a little bit using the Alt key and the right mouse button to see our ship. And let's jump back to our modeling standard workspace. So let's say that on this ship, we select this, I want to actually create an inset here on the front. So right now this is completely flat. Let's turn on our wireframe on shaded so we can see that. You can see the front is completely flat, and I want to actually create an opening there. So what we need to do is use a very common modeling tool called Extrude. If we come down in our modeling toolkit, you'll see under Components, there is an Extrude right here, right at the top. And that's because you're going to use this tool a lot when you're doing your modeling. So the first thing that we need to do is select some polygons that we want to extrude. So we would either go to multi-component or just to polygons, make sure that we have our object selected, and we would come in with whatever selection type that we want and select the polygons that we want to extrude. Let's go ahead and select all of these in the center, just like that. Now once we have these polygons selected, we would then activate Extrude. You can also, if you hold down Shift and click on the button, you can bring up the options for the Extrude tool. It includes divisions, your offset and thickness, and so forth. But let's go ahead and just click the button. So we'll hit Extrude. This brings up our in-view editor here, which gives you the same options. So we can change the thickness by clicking and dragging on the thickness name, and we can either push this in or pull it out. If we were to change the offset, that would make this wider or narrower. But let's leave the offset at 0, and let's push our thickness in. Now right now, you can see, basically duplicated those polygons, pushed them in, and created a new row of polygons. So we're able to add complexity to a very simple model. If we want to add more edges in here, we can change the divisions. So let's add 2 divisions here. One other option I want to mention is the Keep Faces Together. This is turned on right now, so it's treating this group of polygons as one piece. If we were to turn this off, you can see it would still extrude the polygons, but it would extrude them individually, creating a lot of extra geometry in here that we don't really want. So let's make sure to turn this on in this case. Let's click off, and you can see our new detail added here. Now, one workflow that you may use in Maya is the smoothing workflow, which is working at a low resolution and then smoothing the model for render. In this case, we've built our body of the ship at a lower resolution in anticipation that we will smooth it. And Maya provides a really great way to smooth our geometry. All we're going to do is hit the 3 key on our keyboard, and you can see this creates a smooth version. So basically, Maya is smoothing between the low resolution edges to create a surface underneath. If you hit the 2 key, you can see the low resolution cage outside of the new high resolution geometry. Let's hit the 3 key. Now this works great for some of these areas that we want to be very smooth, but we also want the contrast of some harder edges along the areas where it may be machined out. For instance, up in the front around this vent that we just extruded in. In order to create sharper edges when we're using a smoothing workflow, we want to add additional edges to the low resolution geometry. In this case, you can see we don't have any edges here that are very close together, and so the smoothing is happening between these edges and creating a very smooth surface. So what we want to do is add edge loops. We can do that using our multi-cut tool, again, in our modeling toolkit. So we'll select the multi-cut tool, and in order to add an edge loop, which is going to go all the way around these quads, all we're going to do is hold down the Control key. So with Control down, you can see we get a preview. I'm not hitting any buttons, I'm just hovering over. And this gives you a preview of where that new edge will happen if you click. So we'll put one right next to here, and then one up at the top. And the closer you put these edges, the tighter those edges will be when you smooth it. Let's put one in here as well. And let's look at the difference. So we'll go back to our object mode, hit the 3 key, and now you can see that those edges are much, much tighter. Now we get an interplay between these very smooth surfaces and these sharper machined type edges. They give us a look that lends itself a little bit more to our sailing ship. So as you get into modeling, make sure to check out the modeling workspace to make things go a little bit easier for you. Instead of trying to dig through different menus to find your tools, they're all going to be right here within the modeling toolkit. You can also find primitives and other modeling tools on your polymodeling shelf. Now that we've taken a look at how Maya can be used to work with models, let's take a look in the next clip at how we can start to move models around our scenes using animation.